So most of you, I assume, have heard of Oedipus complex, and the reason why it's so famous because it's been propagated by Sigmund Freud, who found the story of Oedipus to be very psychologically and emotionally very relative, very much relating to human experience, and therefore he ventured to comment on it. However, personally, I don't agree with this explanation of the story, and rather I will give a spiritual perspective on the story and why is the story so psychologically relative to relevant. Yes, thank you. Relevant to nearly everyone who reads it. But before that, I have to say a few things about the story. In other words, I have to tell the storyline, picking few crucial points in the story. Number one, Oedipus was found as an abandoned child at the base of a mountain. And I think Oedipus means swollen foot because his feet were tied together. And it was just a small baby, found there abandoned. A shepherd found him and delivered him, brought him back to his home, and then eventually the local king and the queen took care of him, raised him as their own child, and he grew up to be a very fine individual. Very fine individual. He was educated, he was gentle, he was a good person, Oedipus. And in many ways he was a great asset to the king, to the queen, and to the city. Because back then in Greece, each city was like one country for itself. Now, because the king never told, or the queen never told the Oedipus that he was found, it never occurred to him that he was not the king's son. And after some time, when he grew up, he heard rumors that he was not the king's son. So he wanted to investigate this. He really wanted to know. That's one of the traits of his character. He always wanted to know. Curiosity killed the cat. So, cat's about to get killed. So he decided to go see an oracle, like a local magician, or in India, what they call those. That doesn't matter. And the oracle told him that, didn't even answer his question, to his surprise. Did not even answer his question, but rather told him that you're going to kill your own father, and you're going to marry your own mother. And he thought, my God, this is just horrible. Because he was a really good person, and for him to hear something like that from such a reputable oracle like the one he went to, it was a shock. So instead of returning back to the city, he took off. He said, no, I'm not going to even get close to my father or mother. I'll just stay far, far away from them. And I'll just wander the country. So that's what he did. And as he wandered around, eventually he chanced upon a bunch of travelers who had one guy carried on some kind of a carriage, palanquin or whatever it was. And as he passed by him, the guy that was carried around hit him. And he thought, look at these barbarians. He thought that they were a bunch of thieves and rogues. He pulled out his sword. He was a prince. He grew up as a prince. So he was skilled in martial arts. And he killed everybody. He killed everyone there. The fight ensued, and they fought, and he killed everyone, only except one person. One of the helpers managed to escape. And he just continued wandering. And as he wandered, he chanced upon a nearby town, a city, another kingdom. And as he tried to enter the kingdom, there was this creature crouching there, sitting on a big rock, just at the entrance to the city. The Sphinx. It's difficult to pronounce it. Sphinx. And the Sphinx looked, it was a monster. He had a head and the breast of a female human, body of a lion, and the wings of a large bird. So that's what it looked like. And whoever attempted to enter the city, the Sphinx, the creature, would ask the riddle. And if the person would not know the riddle, kaput, finished, will get killed. And the riddle was, how does that go? What walks on two legs in the morning? Four legs in the morning, 2 legs at midday, and 3 legs in the evening. And it's a famous one. I think everyone knows it.
It's called the riddle of the Sphinx.
Oh, is it? Okay. So maybe Sophocles, maybe he borrowed it from history before. Anyhow, that was the riddle. And he knew the answer, so that's humans, you know. They crawl on all 4 when they're young, and then they walk tall on their 2 feet when they're in their prime youth. And when they grow old, they develop a 3rd leg, the king. So the Sphinx killed itself. So he managed to enter the city. He entered the city like that, and the people were so happy with him that they made him a king. They felt so grateful to Oedipus and for what he did. He finally freed him from this beast, and they made him a king, especially because just recently the king was killed. So there was no king, it was just a queen, so they made him a king, and he married the queen of the previous king. And they lived very happily. The city was beautiful. They lived in a palatial building. They were very comfortable, they're very secure. They lived there for many years. They had children. Everything was just beautiful. They had a very pleasant, secure, and happy life. They just couldn't ask for anything more in their lives. They liked each other, they liked their family. Kids were, for the most part, well-behaving. And then one day there was a plague. The plague broke out, killing animals, polluting even plants and food, and it was so bad. And he again sent a messenger to an oracle to ask as to what is the source, the cause of this plague. The answer was that the city was sheltering the murderer of the previous king. And because of that, there is the plague. And Oedipus, being a good person, was very much concerned as to who in the city is sheltering the murderer of the previous king, who was also a good person, because clearly he took care of the citizens. So he made a whole lot of inquiries and initiated a bunch of investigations and doubted few people, but eventually couldn't find who was sheltering the murder of the king. In the meanwhile, also, he found out that his so-called father died and that he was not his father. He also found out that the king was killed just outside of the city, close by where he encountered that party. So he started to put out things around here. He also heard that he was not born to the king who he thought was his father, but rather was found at the base of a mountain. And he also found that the king, where he was the king of the city, where he was the king currently, had a child with the queen that he married. Had a child sometime before he came there, like years before. And they abandoned the child because there was a prophecy that the child would kill his own father and marry his own mother. So the king, being concerned about the future, he not happily, he abandoned the child at the base of didn't kill the child, couldn't do that, but just left him at the base of this mountain. So at this point, the queen, his now married wife, she begged him. She begged him, please stop. Please stop investigating. Please stop asking questions. You're ruining our lives. We're having a beautiful life here. We're happy, we're secure, we have everything we want. The life is just unfolding beautifully for us. And your investigation, your inquiry and questioning is ruining it all. So could you please just stop? No, he wouldn't stop. He tried, but he couldn't. He was such a person. He just had to know. He couldn't quit. And then the queen committed suicide. This is a tragedy. The whole story is a tragedy, by the way. So don't expect a happy ending. And then in the meanwhile, after she killed herself, one of the travelers that traveled with the king, who managed to escape the slaughter just outside of the city when the king was killed, returned to the city and identified Oedipus as the killer of the king. And at this point he understood it all, that he was the son of the king he killed, and then he ended up marrying his own mother, with whom he even had kids. So he just then he understood why she killed herself. And then that was just too much for him. He plucked his eyes, he blinded himself, and went into an exile. And that's the end of the story. Okay, so so the lessons. There are several lessons here. They're very instructive. Lesson number 1. Printed on here just so I don't leave anyone out. Lesson number 1. The whole story is a tragedy because of one thing, just one thing. Oedipus did not know his identity. So even though everything else was perfect, he was a perfect person, he was a good guy. He was educated, intelligent, he had a lot going on for him. Yet, because he had this basic ignorance, he did not know who he was. Everything else was a failure. So similarly, this is the most important question. As long as we do not determine what is our deepest, truest identity, everything else we may do is a failure. Very simple. How do you expect to please satisfy yourself if you don't even know what the self is? And that is the problem. We constantly try to satisfy that which isn't us. So that's why the Vedas teach that identity of the self is spiritual and soul. And as long as the soul is not satisfied, everything else might be just perfect. But if that one thing is lacking, then everything else, the rest is just a catastrophe. It's just a waste of time. So that's one very important thing, that one aspect. Then the other thing is that he was cast away by his father because he was fated to be his father's rival. Now this is, the parallel goes, if we observe our lives, we have one more traveler coming in.
And he's big.
And he's big.
Come on, Kinsey.
There's room.
Good timing.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's all fine. It's all good. 1, 2, 3, resume. We just hit the resume button. So he killed his own father. And because he was his father's rival, he was predestined to be his father's rival. Therefore, he was abandoned. He was pushed away, far away from his own father and from his father's kingdom. So our position, if you think of our position, we clearly are not energetic. We are energy. In other words, we're not causes, we are caused. We're energy that comes from an energy. Every energy has a cause. Every energy has an energetic source. So anyone with a little bit power of observation becomes clear that we're not the energetic source. We're rather just another energy. Very personal, okay, but we're just another energy. Now, due to, in the conditioned life of ignorance, the tendency is, and we can all find this in our own psyche and psyche of many other people, that we actually prefer to be in the position of the energetic. We tend to place ourselves in the central position rather than in a peripheral position. And when we're placed in the peripheral position, we feel abused. That is a state of ignorance. Somehow or other, we continue to be placed in a peripheral position all the time by the force of nature, by the intrigues of other people, blah, blah, blah. We're always being pushed into the peripheral position. Yet, we're this rival of the source, the energetic source. We want to take up that position. And therefore, we're experiencing materialistic existence. In other words, we're cast away from the spiritual cloud, from the scene of spiritual realization. And that leads us to the third point, where Oedipus, enjoys his own mother. That's exactly what we do. We place ourselves, we try to place ourselves in a central position, and we think that the goal of life is to enjoy rather than to serve. This is a basic illusion. The position of the self, the peripheral self, all the conscious units over here that have gathered tonight, that we're in the position of a servant. And generally speaking, in the echelon, materialistic echelon, this is considered a horrible thing to be a servant. Yet every power our power does not come from leadership, does not come from enjoying things and people. It comes from serving things, comes from serving people. The value of any individual in any community lies in how much service does that person provide to the community. More service you have provided to the community, more community will empower you. And more your value will objectively increase. Yet somehow or other we continue to push ourselves in the position of the enjoyer. And that's the formula for catastrophe. That's why the relevance, kill spiritual consciousness so that the materialistic consciousness can be there. And materialistic consciousness, as opposed to spiritual consciousness, is the consciousness of I'm the Lord and enjoyer of everything I survey. And I'm entitled to this. And as long as we think like this, we will continue to hurt ourselves. You may not believe this, but at least you can take this as a postulation and give it some thought. Perhaps you'll find some relevance there. And then, fourth thing, his mother, at that time his wife, begged him, please quit inquiring. We're happy, we're secure, we're comfortable, we got everything going for us. Stop questioning. Every time we set on a spiritual quest, this type of illusion, the materialistic world, speaking through people, through situations, through our own minds, will tell us exactly this. Just go get a job, I mean, I'm nothing against working, but go get a job, make some money, and just be secure, be happy, just enjoy, make yourself comfortable. Do not inquire. Don't do that. God knows where will that lead you. Just live in ignorance, forget about it. Just live in ignorance, entertain yourself, get drunk, take off your pants and dance on a table. Or whatnot. Go do some shopping. There are beautiful gadgets out there, You have no clue what the latest GPS can do for you. And so on and on and on. Do not inquire. You're ruining our life. So sure, you can choose that and remain in the dark corner. But Oedipus did want to know, and it did ruin his material life. Okay. The tragedy of Oedipus gets its psychological power from a hidden truth about conditioned souls, ignorant souls. In a profound philosophical sense, we're guilty of patricide and incest with our mother, in the sense that we have explained. And then the last thing is that, last two things we could say, that Oedipus blinded himself at the end. Blinded himself and went into an exile. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes to be successful spiritual traveler. That one has to have the guts, the courage, to abandon the materialistic view of the world and everything around oneself, and take on a different set of eyes, in order to have a completely different experience of this world. Because materialistic and spiritual view, perception of life and world are completely, radically opposed. And more we inquire like this, more the wife will, well, it's kind of a harsh word to say kill herself. But the illusion, that's the point, that more we inquire, more the illusory structure is going to crumble, is going to collapse. And at the end, kaput, finished. And then as a final blow, we change our vision, and that is the success. So it takes some courage, and it takes some adventurous spirit to make this journey.